Here's something from the post-millennial. This is an interesting report. A new poll out from Rasmussen asks Americans what they really think of those who were bullied as kids now that they're all grown up. The answer was surprising. 45% of Americans believing that once they became adults, those once bullied children spend the rest of their lives trying to get revenge by bossing other people around. College-educated adults are less likely to agree with that statement, Rasmussen reports. They also said at 59% that getting bullied in school is a traumatic experience for children, compared to only 31% who think getting bullied in school is just a normal part of growing up. 10% of those surveyed are not sure. Well, the answer here is that it's both. Bullying is a normal part of growing up. It's also these days a traumatic experience for kids. And this is the problem with the way that we talk about bullying. We're sort of talking past each other like we do on so many other issues, because you've got one side saying that bullying is an epidemic, it's having a devastating effect on children, and the other side saying, no, bullying is a normal thing that kids have always dealt with. We went through it as kids, our parents went through it, our grandparents did, and so on. But these are actually not mutually exclusive options. These are not two opposing theories, right? They can both be true, and they are. So it's true that many kids these days become basically emotionally crippled by bullying. It's overwhelming to many kids when they experience bullying in school. Like, they can't deal with it. It actually does traumatize them, and I do not use that term lightly, as you know. But the fact that we have suicide, for example, among very young children is clearly evidence of that. On the other hand, it's also true that kids have always been bullied, and kids have always bullied each other. You could even make the argument that 50 years ago, the bullying that kids inflicted on each other was probably in many ways worse than it is now. I mean, just ask your dad or your grandfather sometime about the ways that kids would torment each other back in the old days, and it becomes very clear, that it was pretty rough back then. At the very least, bullying is not a new problem. So it's, in substance, it's sort of the same as it's always been, but our kids are less capable of coping with it than they used to be. And that's the nuance here. That's the issue. That's the middle ground, I suppose. Bullying is a normal part of growing up, and our kids are traumatized by it in ways that kids in the past never were, because kids are less able to deal with this normal part of growing up. Why is that? Well, we've talked about parts of the answer in the past. The big thing, the fundamental underlying thing is what we've discussed with the phenomenon of peer orientation. Kids are more emotionally and psychologically dependent on their peers for affirmation and approval than they were in the past, which makes bullying far more devastating than it used to be. Kids rely on each other entirely for approval. They orient themselves to the world based on what their peers are doing. And they do all this to an extreme degree. The internet, social media, public school all combine to create this inescapable peer culture that breeds this kind of dependence. And when the kids are emotionally dependent on each other to have their very existence sort of affirmed all the time, and then when that affirmation is rescinded by the group, it becomes like it's the end of, they don't know what to do. It's like their world has collapsed. So that's a really big part of it. It's not just that, because there's more going on. Another big factor is that, and this is something I think is discussed even less, is that we don't have any concept anymore of how to restore honor, okay? And this probably applies more to boys than it does to girls, but at least I can speak to it, how it applies to boys more than I can to girls. But in the past, it was always understood that if somebody humiliated you, if they treated you disrespectfully in public, if they, mocked you, if they bullied you, right, that your honor had been called into question, and that's your sense of honor as a man, as a boy, if you're younger, has been called into question. You had to restore it, and in many cultures for many centuries, among adult men, they had some form of a duel for such situations. That's what duels were about. And it was about restoring your honors. Your honor had been injured, and you have to do something publicly. There's a ritual, a public ritual in place for you to go and restore your sense of honor. Even among kids in school, until the past few decades, they had their own version of a duel. No guns involved, hopefully, But it was, meet me at the bus stop after school. Meet me on the playground after school. It was that kind of thing. And that's kind of a cliche now, but like back in the day, that's what kids did. That was a real thing. If you had a beef with someone, if you felt like they disrespected you, it was like, meet me here and we're going to fight. And then you showed up and you fought, or one of you didn't show up. In either case, as the aggrieved party, you had a chance to restore your honor. You didn't need to dwell on it. You didn't need to walk around feeling emasculated. Here was your chance to even the score, to prove your toughness, to make it okay. But these days, boys and also grown men, when they have their honor injured, they don't understand what they're going through the same way. Bullied kids had their honor attacked, their good name, their reputation attacked. They don't understand it that way, or at all. They don't really understand. Like they feel they feel injured in some way by their treatment, but they don't understand the injury or why they feel injured. They don't know why they're feeling the way that they're feeling, because we don't have the cultural language anymore to help bullied kids, bullied people, understand why they feel so bad about it. Instead, we sort of limply insist that words can't hurt you, right? Sticks and stones and all that. Like this is what we've come up with. We tell the kids when they're being mistreated, we tell them, oh, well, it doesn't matter what they say. You don't have to feel, they haven't really hurt you, right? Because they haven't hurt you physically, and you could just ignore, it doesn't matter what they think. And we say that to kids, but it's a lie. Like it's this fiction that we've all decided that we're going to pretend that we live in, and we're going to impose this fiction on kids. Because we all know that it's not true. When a kid is bullied and we say, it doesn't matter what they think, you shouldn't care what they think. Well, of course that you care what people think. Everyone cares what people think. And when you're at school and that's your whole social environment, losing your reputation, having people not respect you, not like you, that's a big deal. The same way it would be for any of us as adults to walk around in society feeling totally rejected and humiliated. It's a major deal. There's no point in telling someone, you shouldn't even worry about it. It doesn't hurt you. It does actually hurt you. Yes. To be disrespected, humiliated, all of that, it hurts. It does. It's a real thing. It's not imaginary. There are other forms of being hurt by someone that go beyond the physical. People have always understood this. It's only recently that we decided to pretend otherwise. And we know that we're pretending. We know that we're lying. With the advice we give to kids about how to deal with bullies these days, we know it doesn't work because we were kids once and we know it didn't work for us. Oh, tell the teacher, people say the dumbest things to kids about, like, sometimes, you could, if they insult you, you can agree with them, and that'll disable them. They won't know what to do. I've actually heard that kind of advice, right? Kill them with kindness. Make a joke. Well, most of the time that doesn't actually work, and it'll probably make it worse. We all kind of know that. We were kids once. We know that from our own lives now. But we don't have the idea of like your honor, your reputation was injured, that we don't even talk about that. We don't use those words anymore. And so we have no way of even explaining to kids or to ourselves what's actually going on internally. And even if we do understand it, there's no way for someone to restore their honor anymore. We don't have that. It doesn't exist. It's not accepted. You just can't do it as an adult in society. There's really no way to do it without going to prison. If you try to, you'll go to prison forever. It didn't used to be that way in society, but now it is. In schools, you can't, the zero tolerance policy for fighting. You'll get expelled, your life will be ruined. And so we've taken away these methods for men and for boys to reclaim their manhood and feel good about themselves again, reclaim a sense of agency, a sense of control over their lives, prove their courage, prove their mettle, right? All these things. We've taken away those things. We've taken those methods away. We've taken those rituals away and replaced them with nothing. And so now kids are just hopelessly sort of floundering and not understanding their feelings, not knowing what to do with them. And that's the the situation. I wish that I could wrap this up with some suggestion of a solution, but there really isn't one in the current climate. The only solution is the one you've heard me say a million times, which is, and this is not a perfect solution, but the best single thing we can do about it is to just get your kids out of the public school system. Because the honest to God truth is that if you send your kid to public school and they're rejected by their peers for whatever reason, because kids can be vicious to each other and they could just select someone and say, you're not part of the in-group. And that label can stick. And that really hurts a kid badly, especially these days, but it always has. And it's just too much, actually, to expect a kid to endure that for years on end. You can't say to him, well, this is what your life's going to be for the next 10 years, depending on how old he is. And because you can't, you might like to say to him, hey, if somebody bullies you, find him on a playground, punch him in the nose. That'll work. And actually, it will work. But many times that will work to, again, restore your honor and get the bully to back down. But if he does that, he might get expelled, like the schools have a zero tolerance policy for it. So what do? You just have to get your kids out of these systems entirely. These systems that are completely rigged against them every step of the way. It's just designed at every level to make things as hard as possible for them. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my full podcast on the go, you can check out The Matt Walsh Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.